As you guys just realized, it is impossible to say that a specific language is the hardest language for everybody out there to learn. So now here comes the most interesting part, because I'm going to be talking about official stats. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's your man Rash back with another language video, and today's question is a very frequently asked question, and I'm hyped to reply to that. Now, which one is the hardest language out there? This is a very interesting question because it has an interesting answer. Now, most of you guys know I'm a polyglot, so that means I speak multiple languages, which is the definition of polyglot actually. I speak Turkish, English, German, and Spanish, and a little bit of French to some extent. So I'm familiar with some different language structures and language cultures. Now, I especially wanted to pick this topic because I see a lot of people struggling which language to learn. Most of the time, people really want to learn a language which is easy for them to learn, and they try to avoid the harder ones. And I totally understand that, because we as humans kind of try to avoid too much stress, and that's totally comprehensible. I get it. I mean, I would also consider myself, even though I'm very hardworking and I love to work, I would consider myself to be a little bit lazy sometimes. So answering the question, which is the hardest language to learn, would maybe help us to not learn that specific language, or maybe even challenge us to specifically learn that language. So I'm gonna make it really short. From my point of view, there is not a language that we could call unanimously the hardest language. And the reason for that is because it really depends on multiple parameters. A lot of people might say, hey, Chinese is a really difficult language. It is probably the hardest language out there. Well, if this was the case, you would be thinking about the 1.4 billion Chinese people out there who speak Chinese fluently because it's their native language. So how can we say that it's hard for them to learn Chinese when it's their mother tongue and they speak it fluently? Don't get me wrong, but even the dumbest Chinese guy in China speaks Chinese. So it can't be hard for him, right? So it really depends on some factors, and I'm going to be talking about those factors. Depending on what your native language is, another language might be easier for you or harder for you to learn than for someone else whose native language is another language. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys the 6 different categories that actually affect your language learning process. But before that, I want to talk about my own language learning processes, because I have some, since I grew up with Turkish, German, and English, and then learned French and Spanish afterwards. Since I learned all of those languages when I was a child, and then some of them when I was in school, I don't really remember how that went on, but I definitely remember last year when I wanted to learn Arabic, how I actually struggled because I had no clue where to start. I had no idea how to start learning Arabic, because I've heard so many times that it's a very hard language to learn. You have a different alphabet, you have like different cases, it's nothing like a European language, and so on. So I had a lot of reasons to be confused, and I had no guide. Well, I bought a self-starter book for Arabic, but I kind of didn't really have a good time with it, because I don't know, I kind of couldn't find the motivation for it. I kind of stopped learning Arabic, even though I know the alphabet and I know a couple of words and stuff, but I kind of found my motivation again thanks to Busuu, which is today's sponsor. So Busuu is basically an online platform where you can learn a variety of different languages online, and it's very simple, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So as you can see, there are different languages. We have Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, and everything, but I want to learn Arabic, as I said. There we go, complete Arabic. Let's start with the first lesson. I don't know any Arabic at all. Let's start up with vocabulary. Welcome to the A1 Arabic course. All right. Okay, it says Marhaba, Ana Sami. Marhaba. True. That's true. Hello. And Ana is I am. All right. Marhaba, ismi Sarah. Hi, my name is Sarah. That's so cool. Ma salama. Ma salama. Ma salama. Ma salama. Ma salama. Ma salama. I already feel like an Arabic dude. I'm an Arab deep down.
Marhaba, ismi Sarah.
Marhaba, ismi Sarah. Okay, put the words in order. Marhaba, ismi Hana. Good job. All right, I'm getting good at this, huh? Okay, I want to start a study plan. Now, this part is amazing because you can actually start a study plan, you can have a program. Now, what is your main goal in learning Arabic? I want to learn for fun and culture, okay? I want to be able to introduce myself and ask simple questions. That's A1. What time of day would you like to learn? I can pick all the days, as you can see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I pick 8:30 p.m. I want to study 20 minutes a day. I mean, I feel like everybody has 10 minutes, but I want to have 20 minutes to learn a language that I want to learn per day, which is not that much. 20 minutes is nothing. 10 minutes will be enough for any other language as well, but I'm just a little bit hyped, so I'm going to go for 20 minutes a day. And it says you will reach your goal by November 28th, 2021. Today is September 28th. So that'll be in 2 months. That's pretty quick. Now, why do I think this is especially beneficial? Because as I just mentioned, I had no idea where to start with Arabic, and then I somehow started, and then I just stopped because I lost my motivation. And that's even though I am already a polyglot and I know how to approach languages, but Arabic was just entirely different for me. I had no idea where to start because whenever I started learning another language, I always knew kind of the grammar structure because it was mainly a European language that I was learning. So I always had an idea and I would find the connection and everything. But with Arabic, I kind of lost it at the beginning and I immediately lost my motivation. Now I think Busuu does a very good job here because it really breaks it down into simple pieces and you can really follow the instructions and kind of learn with a program, as you just saw. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I see that people struggle mainly because they have no idea where to start and they have no plan that actually motivates them. They just kind of do a mishmash of things and they just mix it all together, a little bit of TV, a little bit of grammar stuff, but they kind of get lost in the track of thoughts in that kind of mess, you know. I mean, the study program is just amazing because it tells you according to your own free time that you're willing to spend on Busuu, that you're willing to spend for that specific language that you want to learn. It tells you how long it will take you to reach a specific goal. So if you say I want to learn for 5 days a week and I have like 15 minutes a day and I want to achieve the goal of B1 in English, all right, then Busuu will tell you that'll take you this many months or this many days or whatever. And I think that's great and that'll keep you motivated. And the amazing thing is when you check out Busuu with the link in the description box below, you can log in and start learning for free. And if you want to have some additional features, you can get the premium version. So what are you waiting for? Now, as I said, I was talking about the 6 different categories that actually define how hard a language will be for you to learn. Now, the first category is the grammatical concepts. Now, if the language you're trying to learn has a similar grammatical structure or the languages you already know, then it will be way easier for you to learn that language. If it's entirely different, then it will be very hard. Now, if the grammatical concept, let's say in English and in German, are similar, then learning German will be easier for you if you know English. But if it's not the case, then it will be harder. Let me give you an example with Turkish. For instance, Turkish has an entirely different grammatical structure in comparison to the European languages because it's an agglutinative language. If you haven't checked out my Turkish videos yet, and if you want to know a little bit more about the Turkish language and the culture, check out this video right here. That'll help you. If you want to learn Turkish as a native English speaker, it might be a little harder for you to learn it because of the grammatical structure, not because Turkish itself is a hard language. There might be different kinds of concepts. For instance, the genders might be different. You might have more genders or less genders. So in Turkish, for instance, we don't have any genders. But in German, you have 3 different genders, even when it comes to articles. So that makes it a little bit harder for people with less genders or no genders to learn German. So yeah, there are tons of examples that I could give right now, but one of the main aspects is actually the grammatical structure. Is it similar to your own native language or not? Now, the second thing we have to think about is the language family. Is the language that I'm trying to learn in the same language family as my mother tongue, or is it entirely different? Is it a close language family or not? Are there any cognates or loan words in that language that you might know from your own language or other languages you might know? Is it easy for you to identify new vocabulary in that language? Now, newsflash, if you know English, it might be really easy for you to learn Dutch since they're both Germanic languages. They're both in the same language family, which makes it easier for a Dutch guy to learn English, easier for an English guy to learn Dutch, same with German and Norwegian and everything, because they're all in the same language family. However, they don't necessarily have to be in the same language family. They might be also close to another related language family. Let's say if you're a native English speaker and you want to learn a Latin language, relatively easy for you because Latin languages are close to Germanic languages. So an English speaker will not have a hard time learning Spanish, Italian, French, or Portuguese since they're close to one another and you have a lot of cognates and loanwords. If you're asking what cognates are, those are actually words that are similar in multiple languages. For instance, the word coffee is café in German, kahve in Turkish, café in Spanish, and so on. Like those are cognates because they're similar in every language or almost every language. Another important factor is obviously the writing system. When you're learning a new language, you might have another writing system. Most European languages have the Latin alphabet, but then again, if you want to learn Russian, you have to learn Cyrillic. And then again, in the Arabic language, you might have some bigger problems when you see that the letters can look different depending on the position of the letters in the word, which might sound a little bit crazy. Plus, in Arabic, you don't use any vowels when you're writing, which makes it even harder. Then you have other languages with way more characters, such as Chinese or Japanese. Japanese has 3 different alphabets, which makes it insanely hard for non-Japanese people to learn it. Even for Japanese people, I heard it's hard to learn all the characters. I don't know, it's probably way easier for a Chinese guy to learn Japanese since I think there's a big similarity when it comes to characters. Speaking for an English speaker or for a native European speaker, Japanese might be in that case really hard because of the writing system or the other languages that I just talked about, which don't have the Latin alphabet. The 4th thing we have to think about would be the sound and the tones. Now, when it comes to pronunciation, we always get lost when we come across sounds we don't have in our native language. For instance, a lot of languages don't have the TH sound, which makes it hard for a lot of people out there, for a lot of non-native English speakers to actually pronounce the word the, for instance, because it contains the TH sound. So we have to make sure that we really identify all the sounds that we can get, that we have in our native language, and know when to pronounce them, and also learn the new sounds that we do not have in our native language. Try to, get familiar with the sounds. And the more sounds the language has that we don't know from our own language, harder it will be to learn the language and the pronunciation, obviously, because our brain has filters. Our brain actually filters all the sounds that we do not have in our own language, in our native language, or the languages we have acquired at a young age, and actually sorts them out. So it might be harder to learn Chinese, let's say, for an English speaker because of the inflections and the different sounds they make. Then another big factor is obviously language resources. I mean, what am I trying to say? Let's say you're trying to learn a language like English. You have so many resources because English is a widely spoken language. English is the official language of so many countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and so much more. So you have so many newspapers, songs, and other kinds of resources that you might have access to and try to actually learn the language, read it, hear it, see it. You have all kinds of possibilities to actually learn that language with those kind of resources. But if you try to learn a language that has way less resources, let's talk about Latin, for instance. I think Latin is only spoken in the Vatican, but I'm not even sure of that. So as we all know, Latin is a dead language, but I've heard people speak it in the Vatican along with Italian. But even if it's not the case, you might have some resources because it used to be a very, very huge language. But let's talk about another one. That was not a good example. Let's talk about the Basque language. The Basque language is only spoken in the northern part of Spain. And I don't know, it has very few native speakers. You barely find resources. And this makes it really hard to kind of, immerse yourself into that language. So kind of becomes difficult. Same with Icelandic. If you want to learn Icelandic, you kind of really have to go to Iceland, I guess, because it only has like 300 to 400,000 native speakers. If you don't have those resources, how are you going to learn that language, right? So it kind of really makes it harder. The more TV shows, the more books, the more newspapers and songs you have to immerse yourself with the language, the easier it will be for you to actually have access to it and kind of actually learn the language. And now, one of the main pillars of learning a language is the culture. You have to think about the cultural differences between your native language and the language you're trying to learn, because I believe this is one of the most important things, since the culture really affects your way of thinking and the way of expressing yourself. There are so many things in Turkish that we say on a daily basis that cannot be translated into English because it's just a different vibe in that language, and it would just sound weird to say them in English because English has a different culture. Same with, let's say, the difference is not so big, but you have also some kind of things in German where you can relate to that. But I mean, since they're both Germanic languages, they're kind of close to one another. I mean, Turkish was a good example because Turkish is not a European language. It has so many metaphors and sayings which sound weird when translated into another language directly, one-to-one, because of the difference of the culture. So you kind of also have to learn the culture when learning another language. So that means the closer the culture of the new language you're trying to learn is to your native language or the languages you already know, the better it is for you, the easier it will be to actually acquire that language. So now here comes the most interesting part, because I'm going to be talking about official stats. First of all, as you guys just realized, it is impossible to say that a specific language is the hardest language for everybody out there to learn, because everybody has different native languages. However, if we want to take a look at official statistics and see which languages might be the hardest languages to learn for English speakers, for native English speakers, according to the Defense Language Institute, then we have 4 different categories, starting from the easiest category and moving on towards the hardest one. So the easiest languages, category 1 for English speakers, would be Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese, because English is so close to Latin languages. And let me share a memory here, guys. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine sent me an email and said, "Hey, Resh, you know Spanish, tell me what this email says." And I read the mail and I told my friend, "All right, it says blah, 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 whatever, right?" And then I told him, "Bro, by the way, this mail is not Spanish, it's in Portuguese. I have no idea about Portuguese. I don't speak it, I haven't learned it, I don't know a single word in Portuguese, but I got all of it because I speak Spanish." So those languages are so similar that I just got the whole email and I understood every single bit of it, and I could actually tell my friend what was going on in that mail. So I think that's quite interesting, because as you can see, those kind of languages are so similar to one another, and it just becomes really easy to learn them. But we're talking about native English speakers. As you just saw, the first category contains languages such as French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And that's actually a fun thing to see, because I see a lot of American people who actually have a hard time learning Spanish, so that kind of sounds weird, since we're talking about the fact that Spanish is actually one of the easiest languages for native English speakers to learn, but whatever. Okay, so the category 2, which would mean a little bit harder for native English speakers, would be German and Indonesian. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised, because I've always heard that Americans actually have a hard time learning German, and also English people have a hard time learning German because of grammar, because of daddy dust, because of the articles in German, right? Since English and German are both Germanic languages, they're so related. There are a lot of similar things between those two languages. Since I'm fluent in both, I can actually compare them. But German is not an easy language on its own. The only thing that makes it easy for English speakers that it's a Germanic language, that it's the same language family. I have no idea about Indonesian though. If some of you guys know, leave it down in the comment section below. Okay, now category 3, it gets harder now. It gets really hard for English speakers now to learn those languages. These are Hebrew, Hindi, Persian, Russian, Serbian, Tagalog, Thai, Urdu, and Turkish. I can relate because I know Turkish, and Turkish is in category 3, and I would totally say, and I can totally understand why Turkish would be a hard language for a native English speaker, because Turkish is entirely different. It is a different kind of animal, as I said in one of my previous videos. Turkish is a really different language. It just behaves differently. It has a different grammatical structure. The whole cultural aspect of Turkish is on some different pillars, man. Like, it's just entirely different. So that's why a lot of Turkish people also have a hard time learning English, because English is different to Turkish. I mean, it also works the other way around. So if you want to learn Turkish, you really have to have a structure, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have a good teacher, definitely. Yeah, but it can get harder, apparently. Category 4, so the hardest languages for English speakers speakers would be Mandarin, which is Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Arabic. Now, wow, I was actually assuming that we would find Japanese and Korean and Arabic and Chinese in that last category. Apparently, they are hard for English learners. I can totally understand why, because of all the 6 different categories that I just mentioned, because they're so far from being close to one another, those languages. Yeah, it's interesting, but that doesn't mean that Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Arabic are the hardest languages in the world. That's definitely not the case. It's just for English speakers. This is the case for English speakers. Japanese might be a lot easier for Chinese people to learn, even way easier for Chinese people to learn than English, and the other way around for Japanese people to learn Chinese. And Arabic might be super easy for people who speak Persian. I don't know. I sometimes understand a couple of words in Arabic because there are a lot of similarities when it comes to Turkish. So it really depends. And the more languages you speak, the more you understand in different languages that you don't even know. Actually, really widens your horizon. It opens up everything for you. Every single language that I know opens up a different character. I really feel and think differently when I speak another language. When I speak English, I feel a lot more relaxed. I feel like easygoing, man. I can just say anything and people won't be offended. Or at least that's what I feel like. I could just express myself in any way. When I speak German though, I feel like I have to express myself more in detail, because I feel like German likes attention to detail, and you really want to be like on point. You want to be like super correct and politically correct and everything. And you don't want to curse. You want to be super polite, and you want to be like, you want to express everything that is needed in that conversation. German language puts a little bit more distance in a conversation. So it kind of makes like not that close, right? You feel like there is not so much warmth. And I don't mean that it's a cold language. I mean, there are a lot of nice poems and a lot of beautiful stories and songs in German. But I mean, the language itself, when you talk to someone, you can't be very, very close in a conversation. You can't be very warm-blooded. Is that a word? But yeah, that's what I'm trying to yeah, it's weird, but it's the way it is. When it comes to Spanish, I feel like it's a language that is alive. It's like it has so much rhythm and a cool vibe to it. I feel like every time I speak Spanish, I feel like I'm flirting. I feel very, very cool about myself when I speak Spanish. Even like when I'm cursing or when I hear people curse, it just sounds cool, man. I don't know. Spanish is just entirely different. It has so much romance, so much dynamic, and so much rhythm to it that I just want to hear it and speak it all the time. Turkish is entirely different. Whenever I speak Turkish, I feel so down to earth. I feel so real and so warm. Like whenever I speak to someone in Turkish, I feel like there is a connection. There are no walls. There is no distance. It's always like warm and happy and polite and everything. Turkish makes me feel like more human. Now that sounded weird to the other language that I just talked about, but it's just the way I feel. I mean, I love all the languages that I just talked about, but that's just the way I feel about all of them. Yeah. So guys, as you saw, no hard language out there. Hard for you maybe, but not for everybody. Not unanimously hard for everybody. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down in the comment section below. Which languages do you know? Which languages do you want to learn? If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. I see you guys in one of my new videos. Till then, take care.